Ciao, tifosi. Welcome to a special edition of Raff and Raff Rant. We are not live today, but we are in studio with the lead Serie A commentator in Patrick Kendrick. Patrick, how are you doing today, my friend?
I'm great, thanks, guys. Always nice to be here and talk about Italian football, and more specifically, Napoli.
Yes.
I should also mention we're here with Raff Biz. Raff, how you doing, my man?
I am doing well, sir. How are you?
Good. And we say lead commentator in Serie A because Patrick, you are by far one of our favorites. Your voice on our TVs it's always great to see, to hear your voice and to have your wisdom and your knowledge of the game when we're watching Napoli or any game in Serie A. But we have you in here to talk about Napoli beating Verona at the Bentegodi yesterday. Today is Monday, and you were the play-by-play on that match, and just kind of wanted to get your overall thoughts on the match. But what I'm going to ask you first, Patrick, is there was a lot of controversy about Verona and their banner, and it wasn't necessarily a banner that was displayed in the stadium. I think the Curva decided not to bring it into the stadium, probably a wiser decision by them. But it enraged a lot of, not just Napolitani, but fans across the country because, that's a little too much, I think. And I'm sure you would agree. But you did post a nice little video on it, displaying, the history of Napoli Verona and the banter back and forth. But what are your overall thoughts on what happened there? I mean, it's not a good look at all.
No, I think it's completely over the top. I think it's overboard. I think it's excessive, and it's everything that you've said. I think in the past, and I noticed you replied to the short video that I posted, and that's something that my fiance, who's from Naples, has always said. She likes how the Neapolitans are quite classy and eloquent in the way that they've bantered with the Veronesi in the past. She always says con garbo. So it's the idea that you're doing it in a funny way, but without necessarily really insulting people. You're taking a Shakespearean character,
right. A false character,
that happens to be based in fair Verona. We're talking about William Shakespeare, who's an English playwright from the 1500s, who's written a play in Verona. There's a lovely balcony there. It's a great story. And they say, and this is why I did the video on it on social media in the first place, because they're the stories I'd love to tell on commentary, but naturally I can't use words like whore. And that to me is the first word that comes to mind when I hear the Italian word zoccola. So I like to give it a little bit of a sort of Sopranos flavor as well. Ralph Cifaretti, hua. Like that. Anyway, I digress. So I think as long as it stays at that sort of level, I think it's a lot of fun, and I think it does add that flavor to Italian football, that we all know and love, or maybe some people don't know it as much, and so it's nice to get an insight into that side of the game. Then it does go overboard when you see things like that. For those who didn't see the banner, it was essentially a banner posted outside the Bentegodi by some of the Hellas Verona ultras, and it listed the geographical coordinates of Naples, and in not so many words, it was essentially indirectly saying that Naples should be bombed, which is just absolutely abhorrent at the best of times. But these are the worst of times because there is a war going on in Ukraine, lest we forget. So I thought it was really over the top. And I think the reason they don't display them in the stadiums anymore is, I think the TV channels have wised up now. They're no longer going to actually zoom in or give that any sort of coverage in the same way that they won't ever show when a streaker is running on the pitch naked, for instance. And I think unfortunately, the proliferation of social media now means that you can post something and it can go around the world. So they don't need to have the television cameras to get their message across. Right. All they've done is they've posted something on social media and everyone's sharing it. This is what I was trying to say. I was like, let's not share this image because yes, it's right to be outraged. It's right to be scandalized. But if you share the image, then you're only actually helping them achieve their goal in the first place, which is to put this nasty message across in the first place. So unfortunately, that was a really horrible start to the whole occasion. But I'd rather focus on the football side of things. And I actually thought that the host broadcaster did a really good job, DAZN, in showing all of the families that were there. You saw Neapolitan families there. You saw Veronese families there as well. And I think that was more the message they were trying to get across. This can still be a good footballing occasion. And the football was great. I thought Napoli were outstanding, given everything that had gone before. Verona, this is a team that are really strong at home. They had the fourth best attack in the league. Tudor's done a brilliant job. They'd already beaten Juventus, Lazio, and Roma at home this season. And for Napoli to respond like that, I don't really recall Ospina having a single save to make. That was that great header from Farioni. So it was very different to what we've seen before between Verona and Napoli. You remember the previous game last season, Lozano scoring after 9 seconds, and then Verona came roaring back to score 3. We had the final day of the season when finally you break through with Rahmani, the former Elas player. You think, okay, job done. We've got the win. We're in the Champions League. And then 9 minutes later, Farioni pops up and scores. So it was a traumatic fixture for Napoli. So for them to be able to win away at Verona, because even a draw would have been essentially the same as a defeat there. You're coming off the back of that defeat against Milan. You've seen Milan win the previous night to go 6 points clear of you. You have to win, and to do so in quite convincing fashion, I thought was really impressive.
Yes, absolutely. Ralph, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, no, I guess maybe it kind of leads to my first question, Patrick, about it would seem as if Napoli should have maybe came into the stadium maybe a little nervous, maybe a little nervy, maybe a little emotional, but instead, in my opinion, I kind of saw the opposite, where it was Verona kind of seeming nervous, a little agitated at times. They picked up a lot of fouls. I mean, they got 2 red cards, even though it came towards the end of the game. But they had a handful of yellow cards as well. We saw Cecchini hitting the ball out into the stands, which basically led to the goal because he blew the coverage. Did it seem as if Verona were a little bit more emotional on the field than Napoli this time around? And was Napoli more composed?
Yeah, I would agree with that completely. I think what we saw was that actually that banner the previous night probably galvanized Napoli as a whole. And I think the players decided, we're going to let our football do the talking. And I think, the Verona players were on edge right from the word go, to be honest. Yes, it took 70 minutes for us to get the first card, but then they completely imploded. You saw Farioni completely lose his head. Cecchini, for my money, should have got a second yellow card, because I don't care that you're clearing the ball into touch. The ball was clearly over the sideline, and then he went and kicked it into the stands. And actually, it's good refereeing, because if he had stopped to give him a yellow card, then Napoli would never have taken the throw in quickly. I think it was Elmas to Di Lorenzo, and then, really quick thinking. And actually, my colleague as well, my Italian colleague, said that basically the 2 Napoli goals came from the same situation, both from quick throw-ins. In the first half, I think it was Di Lorenzo to Politano, and away they went. And then the second half, it was similar. And Di Lorenzo, by the way, what a performance! I mean, he plays every single game. He plays 90 minutes. He gets concussion at Cagliari. He's back out there 3 days later. The guy is a warrior. He's absolutely unbelievable, and he's so consistent. Centre back, left back, right back, whatever it is, brilliant performer at the Euro. I think, and just so understated and underrated. He's good in the air as well. Pitches in with the odd goal. I thought he was brilliant. I mean, Osimhen's obviously going to get the headlines, but I do think that that actually helped galvanize the Napoli players, all of that stuff in the build up to the match. And I think Verona got a bit tense after that when they saw the game was getting away from them, because they had almost a hex over Napoli in the 3 previous matches when Napoli hadn't beaten them.
Patrick, you mentioned the banner galvanizing the Neapolitans and maybe giving them an extra, reason to beat Verona yesterday. I also want to talk about the approach Napoli took in that changing into the 4-3-3 from the 4-2-3-1. Also, maybe Igor Tudor's words towards Osimhen. I know you put out something, kind of debunking that as well, but I'm pretty sure it had, those words had some sort of effect on, Napoli and the players there. And then again, not, just like you said, not taking anything away from Vlahovic, because he deserves to be recognized as one of the best in Serie A, if not the best. But, a former Juventino manager, someone who is also from the same, I believe, same region as Vlahovic. Maybe he's going to give him the slight edge on Osimhen there, but sort of kind of saying, 9 times out of 10, I pick Vlahovic over Osimhen, but then here's Osimhen with his 2 goals. But I feel like I don't want to bring that up without bringing up, like I said, the change in formation. In my opinion, and we'll give our opinion, Ralph and I, on our live show tonight on Monday night for Raff and Raff Rant. But do you think that Osimhen's 2 goals and the change of the approach has something to do with Osimhen being more available in the middle of the box? Maybe the wingers having a better opportunity to play on the wing. What's your take on the 4-3-3 from the previous formation against Milan, say?
Yeah, no, I think you make a really good point, because obviously I think the rationale behind it was to try and give Zielinski a bit of a rest. He's been looking jaded, a little bit tired recently, and that's understandable. He plays at a very high level week in, week out, and occasionally players just need a bit of a breather. Spalletti said in his post-match comments, he was trying to debunk, you correctly use the verb there. He was trying to debunk this notion that suddenly Zielinski had been dropped. He was like, no, he just needed a rest. It was all part of the plan. He'll be back on form come our next game, home to Udinese, incidentally. And I think the 4-3-3 really helped. I think it gets the best out of Zombongi-Sa, is nice to see him for the first time starting a game this calendar year. And it also does help Osimhen, as you said, because you have those wingers a little bit higher. Because with a 4-2-3-1, you've got 2 sitters, and then you have those 3 players that are trying to play between the lines. And then you have Osimhen. At times we've seen him isolated. We saw that against Milan, where he was almost 30 yards ahead of all of his colleagues there. And because of the characteristics of some of those players, when it is Zielinski and when it is Insigne, they're very good on the ball, but occasionally they don't have the same dynamism. They're not as maybe direct as Politano. I thought Politano had a great game. And it's a credit to him that he doesn't necessarily always need to cut inside. We saw him go on the outside and cross the ball really well with his weaker foot, with his right, for that opening goal. And we've seen 3 times recently just how good Osimhen is in the air. We saw him score a header at Venezia, we saw him score a header at Cagliari, and now in Verona. And I think they need to make more of that, to be honest. And I think those are exactly the sort of crosses you need. You don't need to whip the ball into him. He's so good in the air. He times his jumps so well. I was talking to my co-commentator, Massimo Paganini, and he said, I don't remember seeing a player attack the ball as well as Osimhen, the way he hangs in the air, the way he gets up early. And so I think there's a lot to be said for that, whether it's Lozano or Elmas, whoever it may be on the other side, Politano on the near side, the right side. I think they really need to try and make the most of that. And I think 4-3-3 could be a good option going forward. But if I was Spalletti, and again, I'm not, and I don't get paid like he does to make these calls.
Neither do we.
I think it might be a good idea to mix and match, almost based on the opposition. I know there are a number of coaches that say, no, we want to play our game. We're not going to adapt for the opposition. I think that can occasionally be a bit churlish and a bit naive. But yeah, I was really impressed with the shape, the way Napoli played. And if that gets the best out of Osimhen, as far as I'm concerned, you have to play that way, because he's one of your 3 or 4 world-class players, I think, along with Fabian, along with Koulibaly. And that's probably it, I would say, in terms of the world-class players for Napoli. Yeah.
I have a question about, we didn't see Mertens once again. I know we're running low on time, Patrick, and we'll get you out of here real quick. We didn't see much of Mertens at all. Well, we didn't see Mertens at all this game. Do you think this is something to do with his form, his health, or is it just Spalletti not wanting to use him?
I don't know. Spalletti's been told something from upstairs, if it's the senior management, but it is odd, because no, we've never seen a Napoli coach leave Mertens out this much. Mm-hmm. He would always come on for 25, 30 minutes, even when he's not the starting striker. But I think I've done several of Napoli's recent matches, and he's barely got on the pitch at all. We've very rarely seen him as an unused substitute. So, he's out of contract. So, I mean, it's a difficult one, isn't it? They've found a resolution to the Insigne one in January. We're still waiting to see what happens on Mertens. I think it would be a shame if he were to go, but I think they need to make a decision on this, because it's only going to add speculation to the whole situation. And Napoli are still in the title race. You need clarity. You need everyone pulling in the same direction.
Agreed.
And Mertens, because of his history with Napoli, the all-time leading goal scorer in the club's history, he deserves a good send-off, and ideally with a trophy. So I think, and unless he is I'd be amazed if he's asked not to be involved for whatever reason. That's the only thing I can think of is perhaps that someone has made a request or Spalletti has decided, well, he's leaving at the end of the season anyway. We need to start planning without him. There are a number of different options. The player might say, okay, I'm going to leave the club at the end of the season. I can't afford to sustain a long-term injury at my age. Then I won't get a contract. I think he's 35 in May. There's the senior management possibly saying, and there's all sorts of contractual clauses that we're not party to. Maybe he's got a goal bonus or whatever it may be. If he gets to 150 goals and he's not far away from that. So I don't really know. It's hard to speculate on that. I haven't done too much digging on it, I have to say. But it's definitely one that's raised a few eyebrows. But I suppose as long as Napoli are winning and Osimhen is scoring. But we saw Petagna hobble off. So
yeah,
now
I was just going to mention that we have to see the Petagna situation. Because if Osimhen's going to need a rest, who else is going to go there? It would be Mertens if Petagna is not available. But I like what you mentioned about players that are adapting to the style for Osimhen, making sure Osimhen is fed properly and given the ball and the right way. A lot of our fans would argue that putting Mertens in at the number 10 spot with Osimhen is possibly the answer, and they're frustrated as to why that's not happening. But you make a really good point. I like to believe that it's not Mertens because he loves the city. Not him saying I don't want to contribute, so sit me.
Right.
But something's up there for sure, and it could also be. We've seen him in the past few matches, not regularly as much too, but maybe, he just didn't feel the need to have Mertens in there. That's my opinion. But, it's very worrying to the Napoli fan who loved Mertens, who said he would take zero money or not zero, but a lot less money to play. Really quickly, and then we'll let you go.
Sure.
The Scudetto race, man. How can we not talk about it? There's 9 matches left, 10 for Inter. So many points still left to go. You see Inter not get a result or not the result they want, and the Interisti are panicking. The Scudetto's over. You see Napolitani after the loss last week say, that's it, it's over. Milan are going to drop points eventually because, in my opinion, Patrick, 1 to 4 is going to drop points more than once the rest of the season, I believe. Where are you with it? I don't know where your heart lies. I think I might have an idea of where your heart lies, but where are you when it comes to realistic Scudetto outcome? What do you think is ahead for these 4 teams here?
Well, I've had Inter the whole time, I have to say.
So have I. Yeah.
On the basis that I think of those 4 teams, I think Juventus have left themselves too much to do. But Juventus are the one team that scare the other 3 because of their history, because of the fact Allegri's won 6 Scudetti, because they've done it in the past. We all remember that season when they won 15 games, I think it was in a row. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So they've been there and done it, but I think they've left themselves too much to do. Although their next 2 are Salernitana home and then Inter home. So Milan go to Cagliari next, who are fighting for their lives. And Venezia have a couple of games in hand on Cagliari. It's really tricky, to be honest. I had Inter on the basis that of those 4, they were the only side I thought that could win games comfortably, whereby they can take a 2 or 3 or 4 goal lead and then literally just coast the rest of the game, get their breather in already, get their key players off. Whereas I've seen a lot with Napoli. Napoli are defending well, got the best defense in the league. Milan are keeping clean sheets. But it's nail-biting stuff right until the 90th minute. You're hanging on, you're clinging on. And however comfortable Napoli were against Verona, like I said, the one effort on target from Farioni, or Milan not having too many efforts to repel from Empoli. When you only need 1-0, psychologically, that is exhausting and it's draining. And this will have a cumulative effect. So I think Napoli and Milan, I had them as outsiders simply on that basis. Milan still having a very young squad. I know it's a cliche, but there's truth to it. You guys know as well as me, Naples and Neapolitan culture is a culture of extremes. It's dizzy highs, manic lows, for want of a better word. So when you win, it's absolute paradise. When you lose, it's the end of the world. And we saw that a little bit with the fallout to the Milan game. And I don't think Napoli played that badly at all, which is why I did expect that knock-on effect and maybe Napoli to drop points at Verona. So the fact that Napoli won at Verona and they're only 3 points behind Milan does bode well. I think you could literally throw a dart at this, or you could toss a coin. It's impossible to say. I said a couple of weeks ago, if I were a betting man, which I'm not, I'd put some money on Juventus just because I think there's some value there. Because I think, like you said, Rafa, I think all 4 of the teams will drop points. Not even twice, I think 3 or 4 times, to be honest.
More than once, for sure.
Absolutely. So watch this space. Keep tuning in is what I would say. And I'd love it if we went into the final day of the season with the 3-horse race. That would be incredible. 4,
I think it's going to be close to that. It's
one for the ages. It's one for the ages, and I'm just happy. I'm from the Napoli perspective, Patrick. I'm happy to be a part of it, whether we win the Scudetto or not. And I know I'm going to get killed for this too. I always do. Our objective, to me, especially with the Atalanta draw, our objective is almost certainty. Yes. Champions League. Once we clinch that, which could be soon. It's all, it's full speed ahead to the Scudetto for me. And if we don't win the Scudetto, as long as we're a part of it, we're in the conversation after the 2 seasons that we've had, I'm happy. But of course I want to wear that Scudetto patch next season. I want one word from our final question and then we can let you go.
Okay.
Inter Torino, penalty or no?
Yeah, I didn't watch the game live. I've only seen the footage. It looks a penalty to me. Yeah.
Can't deny that. Can't deny it. I don't know where VAR was on that, but whatever, man. Whatever. Ralph, unless you have anything else, we can let Patrick go because he's got to go do Lazio Venezia, right? Lazio Venezia. Patrick. It'll be on at my barbershop. I can guarantee you.
Good stuff. Glad to hear it. There'll be goals. Look out for Ciro.
Good. Well, we need him.
I'm with Patrick on there.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. A couple of weeks from now.
We need him. Yeah. Yes, sir.
Cheers, guys.
Right,
always
Patrick.
A pleasure.
Ciao. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.